Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and today's episode is Meal for Two. And today is a little bit of a more, I guess, different episode compared to the previous Meal for Twos. And so, just right away, I'm gonna get out there. We're not gonna talk about popular foods today, and that's because we did something a little special. Yesterday we went out to Los Angeles. In I think it's called the Japanese Village town. Is that correct?
Yeah, Little Tokyo Japanese Village.
Yeah, Little Tokyo Japanese Village. And so we went around there and ate at a couple of places, and we do want to talk about them because they were actually. It was very unexpected, and my gosh, do you want to get to? Do you want to tell the story of how we even got to that point of even deciding to go to Little Tokyo?
Yeah, sure. I can explain that funny story. So the literal only reason that me and Jin decided to go to Little Tokyo, it was a spur of the moment, I will add. It was just like, let's go. But how we got to that point was me and Jin, he was introducing me to an anime, and we were watching it, and all of a sudden the anime goes into, they're in a restaurant eating, and they were eating okonomiyaki. And after I saw that, I just stopped watching. I didn't tell him I wasn't watching for a second. I just went onto Google and started googling where to find really good okonomiyaki. And of course, it would happen to be in the heart of LA in Little Tokyo. And after we were done with that episode, I was like, "So, hey, Jin, you want to go to LA tomorrow?" And you're like, "Wait, why?" I was like, "Oh, I want okonomiyaki now." And he was like, "Really? You want it now?" I'm like, "Well, tomorrow, just because that looked really good in the anime." So I was like, "I kind of want it now." And you're like, "All right, I'm down." So,
We ended
long
up
story
going.
short, yeah, we just ended up going the next day.
But before we get to the okonomiyaki, well, we actually did not get to eat the okonomiyaki right away as we planned. So what happened was we met up at 10:30 and we went off to LA at that time. We got there by um I would say
A little after
11.
11. A
11.
little after.
And so funny story is while we were looking at okonomiyaki, because traffic is such a pain um during certain times of the day, especially on a weekend, because we went on a weekend. As of we're recording this, we're kind of outside of our recording and uploading schedule. We usually upload and or record and upload on Saturdays usually. And yesterday we were gonna be out for the whole day, so that's why we're recording on Sunday. So um, while we were talking about how we wanted to, or talking about the okonomiyaki, and he was introducing me to this place, Saki decided, hey, uh, since traffic is gonna be really bad, why don't we just stay there for a couple of hours just to make the trip worth it too? Because it's a pretty far drive. It's not like something we can do regularly.
Plus
Um,
gas
yeah,
is
plus
expensive
gas.
now.
Yeah, gas is really expensive, and so um, he was like, yeah, let's just make the most out of it and go around other shops and maybe we can eat some other food too, right? And so we're looking at all these places. We were deciding, do we really want ramen? Do we really want like other things, sushi and everything? And while I was looking at stores on the maps, we use Google Maps for this one, not Yelp. We both don't like using Yelp. We not. It's not necessarily a bad app. It's just we don't trust it as much as Google Maps, like reviews and the restaurants and everything, because that's tends to be way more reliable than Yelp, I would say. And so I saw this like really highly rated shop. It had like 1,222 reviews, which is highly unusual for a Google review. Like for Yelp, it might be like whatever. It's like that number's
Average.
nothing. Yeah, but for Google, it's very highly unusual. Um, and what was even more unusual is with those 1,222 reviews was the fact that it had an extremely high rating. I think it was like a 4.7.
Something like that. Something very high. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really high, and I was like, well, "What's up with this?" And it turns out it's an udon shop. And for those of you who don't know, udon is basically a broth like seafood based broth, almost kind of like that, with noodles. Um, I guess you can compare it to ramen, but ramen's very different at the same time. If I had to describe it, udon is very light compared to ramen in that sense. And the noodles are very different. Udon noodles tend to be thicker and chewier compared to ramen noodles, which tend to be
Uh,
thinner, right?
yeah, udon noodles are rice noodles, and ramen noodles are usually egg noodles, thin egg noodles.
Yeah. And so we're like, well, it's kind of rare for one an udon shop to exist. That's not really popular here in the like the US. And two, it's extremely highly rated amongst all the other noodle shops that are around there, which are basically ramen. There's like literally where the restaurant was situated in, there was like three other ramen shops in that same street. So
Same street within like walking distance of each other.
yeah. And so I was like, hey, you want to check this out? And he was like, yeah, sure, why not, right? And then I looked at the, what time it opened. It opened at 11:30. But then I checked the times at like the peak like visiting hours, whatever, like their business hours, like how many people are like the traffic. There we go. And I looked at it. It was peak traffic at opening time. I was like, what on earth? And so I was like, yo, Saki, I don't think we can get in. Do you think we can get in? And he was like, yeah, I don't know, because if it is at peak, right? How are we gonna get in? And I even saw on the like a note, someone left a like kind of like a note. It says, note this shop does not do reservations. It's only like first come, first serve. And so you can't call ahead and be like, hey, can I reserve a table? No, they don't do that. And so we kind of decided to go a little bit earlier than planned. Because I mean, hey, if we get there earlier and we can get there in time, why not, look at the udon, or why not stop by the udon place and, maybe try it? And so that's exactly what we ended up doing is we ended up going there earlier, which is we arrived at 11. And so initially we did not go to the udon shop because we saw a group of people there and we're just like, that's not big of a group, whatever. Like there was only like maybe at most 6 people waiting there at 11 o'clock. And we were just like, we'll come back later. So we went to like another section of stores, and I think until it was until like 11:10, I believe, 11:10, 11:15.
No, we got there at 11:10. We around 11:20 we decided to go back to
Oh,
our
right,
first
right,
one.
11:20. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I forget the details. This is why you're here. And
I got
so, thank you. And so, at around 11:20, we decided to go back and like look at the shop, and there was like it was growing. The line was growing, or like the like people who were gathering around the shop was growing. And then I looked, and then we were like, oh gosh, do we just have to wait and hopefully we get in? And as I looked, it turns out there's a like a wait list, right, where you just sign your name, whatever. Like pretty sure many restaurants do that, one way or another. And so I put my name in, and I saw the list. There was like 3 parties of 6, 1 party of 5, 2 parties of like 2 parties of 2, and like 3 parties of 4 or something like that. It was insane. And we were kind of worried, like, is this even gonna be worth? And I remember we were just kind of waiting silently, like, we didn't have much to talk about. It was right next, the street was literally right next to us, and it was noisy. People were talking, and so we didn't have much to talk about. And I remember you noting, like, man, they're sure taking their time to open up. But then, right when they opened up and like started accepting customers, you're like, damn, 11:30 on the dot.
Yep, they open at 11:30 and they were setting things up. And finally on 11:30 on the dot, they walk out and they're like, "All right, party at 6 for this person. Are you here?" And I was like, "Oh, dang, that's accurate."
I remember. And keep in mind, us too, we didn't have that much expectations. We didn't even plan for this initially. Like we were just kind of, we were kind of like, if the opportunity is there, I guess, type of deal. Like we didn't really look into the menu. We were just like, it's a highly rated udon shop. We're curious, why not try it, right? And as far as I know, we didn't even look at the prices, which is
No,
unusual for us to
we
do.
just yeah, we were just like, if we get in, okay. If not, well, we got other places too. So
Yeah, but fortunately, in this case, we were actually able to get in because the interior is a lot bigger than you think. In the inside, I didn't get to see inside of it. I was kind of like on the outskirts. I don't know if you saw the inside of while we were waiting, but we were able to get in like right away. It was we were since I ended up signing up early. We ended up getting in right away, so we didn't have to wait at all. And so we sat down and we looked at the menu, and You were surprised. Would you want to talk about that?
Uh, just about the
The
menu in
yeah,
general,
the
or
menu. You were kind of surprised when you first saw it.
yeah. So the menu. So of course they have like their signature udons, and then they have the more classics. The plain, I guess plain basic ones. So I'm looking, I'm like, oh, okay, they have a nice like basic udon. I'm like, okay, they have one with seaweed. I'm like, okay, they have one with like chicken. And then I'm looking at the specialties, and I'm like, okay, why is this one say carbonara? I was like, that's Italian. I don't know how that's gonna be with Japanese slash Italian fusion. And then I kept looking. I'm like, okay, this one says jjampong. I'm like, that's Korean. I'm like, what is this fusion? What is happening? I'm like, we're here at Japanese food, and they're fusing, other ethnicities into it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna be good. So of course, knowing me and a new place, anytime I go to anywhere new, I like to try the basics. Because if they don't have the basics down properly, I to me they're not gonna have anything else down. That'll be very good. So I kind of went more basic. I got one with seaweed in it and green onions. Jin, I believe you went even more basic than I was. You just got the literal like
Standard
base
udon, which was I believe
standard.
called
Yeah.
kake udon, and yours was called wakame udon.
Yeah.
And so, we were actually kind of shocked by the prices when we first saw it. We didn't expect it. My kake udon was $9,
It was
9.99. I
like
think it was ten
yeah,
dollars
it was like
essentially.
it was like 9.99 for his, and mine was 10.55. And I'm like, wow, that's not much of a difference. And I got seaweed in it, and
Yeah.
I will add, it wasn't like the dried seaweed; it was fresh seaweed. Everything was made fresh, so
and
that made it even better because I like fresh seaweed.
and you had a spectacle because where we were seated, we were seated next to a pillar, and I was towards the one where I was facing the pillar, so I couldn't see beyond the pillar, but you could see because there's nothing blocking your view, and you could see directly into like the cooking area, and you saw certainly a spectacle going on there. Would you like to describe it?
Yeah, so we were sat at a table, a small table for two people. He unfortunately got sat next to the pillar, so he couldn't really see much. I was on the other side like across from him, but the pillar didn't reach my side, so it was only blocking the table really. But I could see into the kitchen, and man, they were a well-oiled machine, because there was like three or four cooks. One was doing broth, one was doing noodles, one was doing specialties, one was getting the bowls ready, and they were doing well. They were on it. There was just stacks of bowls ready. One guy would put the noodles in, the next guy would come in with like the broth or the specialty ones, and he'd just pour it on top, and it'd go out like it was just incredible to watch.
And I think for us, it only took like the
10
whole
minutes
10 minutes.
from ordering to getting our food.
Yeah, from well, even I think even in sitting down and getting ordering it like max 15 minutes, which is incredibly fast if you think about it.
I think it was also incredibly fast because, as Jin mentioned earlier, there were many large parties. So we probably got our order in before everyone, in their party decided what they wanted. So I think that had a little thing to do with it, because when I saw they put our order in, I only saw maybe like two other tables without the menus, and the big tables of like 6 and 5, they still had the menu. So I knew they didn't get their order in, because usually in a restaurant you order and they take the menu from you so they could give it to the next table, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw a lot of those tables still have the menus, like a stack of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew we got our order in before those parties, which made it a lot quicker.
Yeah. And my God, does the next part come where we taste the udon, um, and so I think I went first, right, in terms of tasting, or was it you?
I went first because you have a little more sensitive palate to extremely hot food.
Yes, I am very sensitive to hot food.
I am sensitive to it, but not as bad as Jin. So how I like to taste like ramen or udon first is I always taste the broth. Broth is always first before noodles, before toppings, anything. It's always broth. So I was like, okay. When we first got it, I gave it like a couple minutes to start cooling down, and after a few minutes, I'm like, I'm impatient. I don't want to wait any longer. So I just went. I just went for it. It was still hot, but I drank the broth. It was so clean. It was amazing, and I was like, Jin, you have to try this, even if it's gonna burn your mouth off. You have to try this. And you're like, okay. And so you took a super small sip because, of course, you're a little bit more sensitive. And so you tasted it, and you're like, oh my god. And then we were like, all right. Then we're like, okay, let's try the noodles. And we both looked at each other like, these are fresh noodles. Like they just made these. I'm like, these are amazing. They're chewy. They weren't like mush. They were cooked properly. The broth was flavorful. The toppings were good. And then you looked at the little bottle of a sort of chili pepper seasoning on the table, and that was a game changer.
And so I would like to take over this part. And first, I forgot to mention when we got the udon, we were very surprised. One, because the bowls were huge. We didn't expect them to be that huge. Because when we saw the price, we kind of assumed it'd be like we didn't talk about it. We didn't discuss it with each other when we saw the price, but I think we both kind of just thought in our minds like this is $9 to $10, $10 to $11 for both of us. The bowls have to be small, right? Just because in today's economy, inflation, and everything, like we expect it to be small. No, that thing was huge, and it's not like. And when I mean huge, I mean actually huge. Like you would have to, like no matter what, you would have to use two hands to like. You can use two hands to lift it, and you couldn't even get your fingers around like the bowl, the circumference of the bowl. That's how big it was, and what was more amazing is that it wasn't shallow. It was actually like pretty deep, half the chopsticks deep. So not only was it wide, it was also pretty deep. So that serving was humongous.
I want to add one little quick thing to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so you're like, oh, the bowl is huge, and you're like, it's probably really shallow though. So you took your chopstick and you shoved it into the soup, the broth, and you're like, nope, it's not. And I'm like, oh, maybe you hit a noodle, and I put my chopstick in mine. I'm like, no, you're right, it's pretty deep.
We were very doubtful just because of the price we initially saw. We're like, there's no way it could be this good, right? And so, and as he said, he didn't really take a few minutes. It really took him only like 10 seconds before he couldn't resist because it looked so good. That he ended up doing, and I ended up following right after. So like, really, it only took us 20 seconds to cave in to start eating it, despite it being a hot bowl. But yeah, like we were eating it, it was really delicious. And as Saki said, we earlier when we sat down, we saw this little spice mix, right? We decided we weren't gonna really use it. We didn't really pay attention to it, and then I looked at it and I was just like, man, I wonder how it's like, right? And curiosity got the cat. Whatever, got the better of me, and I was like, I gotta try it. And you saw me, you were like kind of doubtful of me when you were looking at me. I was like, so I took a scoop of soup and put noodles in it, right? And I grabbed the spice thing. You're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm gonna, and I said, I'm gonna try the spice, right? And I start putting it in, and I'm like, I'm not gonna risk putting it in my bowl, like the whole bowl of udon, whatever, the rest of the broth, just in case I don't like it. And so you're like, yeah, sounds fair. And then I tried it, right? And my immediate reaction was similar to when Saki first tasted the broth. I was like, Saki, you have to try this. And you were very doubtful because one, you tend to like things eating the way that it's supposed to meant to be eaten, like in terms of like its pure form first. And
yeah, especially because it was our first time. I do like eating it in its purity first without adding anything, just to see if it's good. And if it's good and you come back, that's when you start adding stuff because it's gonna be good already.
Yeah. And then I was like, just try it, right? Because he still gave me like a kind of like a doubtful look, like not like super distrusting, but just like kind of look. I was just like, just try it, just do exactly what I did, which was put the get some of the broth, put the noodle on your spoon, and then put it on, right? And I just see him do it, right? Because I didn't eat mine. I was waiting for him, and as he put it and he ate it, all you did was you ate it, silence, and then you look up and you just give me the look.
I gave you the look. So I don't know if you know this meme with Shaq when he ate the spicy chip and it finally hit him and he goes, "Ooh." Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the look I gave you. I ate it and I'm like, "Ooh, that's good."
And so we're like, bruh, this is really good. We gotta put more of this. So we just kept on doing the same thing, right? Because I think you opted to still not put it in your broth overall, like your actual bowl. But I ended up
Yeah.
just dumping mine in, and it was really good. But we were just like, oh my god, this is so good, this is so good. And we looked at it and we're like, what is this? We have to find this, right? We're like, well, this is like, how do you say this? It's like a spice mix that you could put in many things.
Yeah.
Um, and I believe the ingredient list was like what? Chili pepper, orange peel, which was surprising, and
Yeah.
um, black sesame, white sesame seeds. I think it was like, what else was there?
Was it ginger or garlic?
Yes, ginger. It was ginger. It was ginger.
Ginger.
And then I think one other thing that I don't remember, but yeah, it was
Oh, the
so
chili
good.
pepper.
Yeah, chili pepper, and it was so good. And we're just like, we're gonna have to find this, right? And you know, fast forward a little bit more. We ended up finding it. And we each bought one.
Yeah,
um,
we ended up buying it. I mean, where else to find it than in little Japan, little Tokyo? Where a better place to look, right?
yeah. So back to the story. After we ate, we were sad. Like we were really satisfied. Like you and I were like, like that kind of like when you
We
like the little breath of like satisfaction. You're like,
Yeah, and I remember after we left, because mind you, there was a line outside, so we want to, have a little common courtesy and get out as quickly as possible so more people can, enjoy this meal. So when we finally got out, you looked at me and you were like, that was so good. I don't even mind if we leave right now and go back home. And I'm like, nah, man, we can't. I was like, I wouldn't mind either, but we drove all this way. We might as well, stay and shop and look at other stuff since we came out all this way. Might as well, right?
and yeah. And so we did a lot of other things. We took some time before we ate the next meal because it takes a while. Udon thankfully isn't that heavy, so you can digest it faster and you feel hungrier again sooner. And so we did a lot of other things. We can talk about that next week when the Adventures Life, whatever episode is gonna come. And so for now we'll just only talk about food. And the next place we went to was an Okonomiyaki shop, and that was a surprise in a different way. I would say. Gosh, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I got this one. I got you. All right. So after we, explored a little, we started to get hungry again because we're walking. We were walking for at least a couple hours. And so we're like, all right, I told you, I was like, hey, I'm getting hungry again. Like, cause for me, soup goes through my system pretty fast. So I got hungry fairly quickly, like 2 hours later. And so I was like, hey, you want to go to the Okonomiyaki place? The actual reason why we came out here? And you were like, yeah. I was like, you were like, yeah, we should go over there. I was like, all right. So we headed back towards the restaurant, and there was a wait list. So I added our name to the wait list, and it said it would take about 25 to 40 minutes of a wait. And I was like, okay. So we decided to go back to the car, drop off the stuff we bought, and come back. We got to the car. We sat there for a couple minutes to rest, and we started heading back. Like 10 minutes after I signed us up, I got a text. No, I got a call actually. And I was like, oh, I don't know this number. I'm not answering it. It was the restaurant saying our table was ready. And I was like, it said 25 to 40 minutes. It's been 15. And I told Jen, I'm like, I think we got to go now. And you're like, how much time do we have? So they also texted me. Please show up within 3 minutes of this text. And I look at the time, it was sent 2 minutes ago. And I was like, we got to book it. So we started speed walking and we got there. We made it in time, thankfully. And so we sat down. You ordered for us because I needed to. My hands felt gross just for being so dry, so I washed my hands. So you ordered a goam, I believe,
Yes.
okonomiyaki. So he ordered for us. We got a Guam Okonomiyaki and a 4-piece of original takoyaki. So the Guam Okonomiyaki, it was, it was a good size for one person. And when we saw the price, we were like, "Ooh, that's a steep price for what you get." It was $18.
Yeah.
That for what you got, it was maybe worth half of that, maybe 9 to 10. Because one, it was a little small for two people, good enough for one, and then for both of us, we thought it needed more sauce.
Hmm.
There's a special okonomiyaki sauce, so he added extra Jin added extra sauce, and I thought it could have used a little more mayo, so I added more mayo on mine. But yeah, once we saw the bill come through, and I was like, "Dude, that was $18." I'm like, that. I don't think that it was. It tasted great, but it was not worth $18.
Yeah, that's the like kind of like the baffling slash frustrating part. Is like, it is good okonomiyaki. Don't get us wrong. We liked it. We thought it was actually pretty good. But the problem was, for the amount you get plus the price, it's just simply not worth it. As much as we love Japanese food, as much as we love to like eat good food, we don't believe that simply handing out food that seems over, or simply eating food that seems far more overpriced, right? Is worth just it's just worth doing in the first place, because it's not realistic to expect everyone to shell out $18 for one serving of okonomiyaki. That's ridiculous in our opinion. And so
Yes.
I don't know. We were just kind of disappointed because it's like, again, taste was good. Even the takoyaki was good. Okonomiyaki was great, but the price, it's double for what it's worth in our opinion. I'm sure if someone else could argue like labor costs, ingredient costs, whatever, maybe, but like I still don't see how it's feasible to make an okonomiyaki for one person $18.
I also do want to add something, if I may.
Go ahead.
There was not like a single Japanese person in there eating, just the workers.
Yeah.
I
Um.
I think your reasoning, and I kind of agree with you, was because Japanese people make this at home
Yeah.
for way cheaper.
Yeah. And I think the conclusion we came up with was this is good enough from a foreigner's visit, if that makes sense. If you're never gonna go to Japan, if you're never gonna ever like go and eat actual like authentic Japanese food, this place is fine. You can just do this is like a one time experience type of thing where you just shell out $16 to $18 for one okonomiyaki, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. It's for you to experience. This is kind of like the American tourist kind of thing, and um, I feel like any right normal Japanese citizen or Japanese person or Japanese like born in Japan or anything like that, or anyone who grew up with Japanese food like very closely with it, will never come to this place ever, and they'll just view this as a complete ripoff because they can make it at home. And so, despite us being disappointed from the price majorly, we still agree that it was good okonomiyaki. Um, and yeah, so that was the okonomiyaki what we came for. It was a little disappointing, at least to say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Jen completely. Taste was amazing, price was not amazing.
It was certainly like an upscaled restaurant or something like the upscale type thing. And so
It was for the tourists,
yeah.
as we could tell, because as we saw, no Japanese people,
Oh,
but there were a lot of.
and the udon
Yeah, go
place
ahead.
had Japanese people. Like a couple of them were
Ye-
there.
Yeah. So those are the differences. You go to the more mom and pop shops than the chains.
Yeah. And now comes on to the last one, which is the sushi, which is why this image is even here in the first place. And so um gosh, this is I think also a popular chain. I think it was called Kura Japanese revolving sushi. So it's revolving sushi.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it. And so how revolving sushi works, if you don't know, is that plates of sushi are put on a conveyor belt, and the guests are allowed to freely pick from the belt for whatever selection they would like to choose and eat them. However, how the price is calculated is that they have this little dispenser thing where if you finish eating whatever plate you chose or whatever sushi you decided to eat, you just throw the plate inside the dispenser and it'll count that plate. And each plate costs a certain amount. I had only gone twice, including this one before. You had never gone to a revolving sushi before.
Yes, I thought it was a gimmick at first. I'm like,
Yes.
what's the point?
Yes. But when I first went, I'm just gonna get this out of the way before we even talk about experiencing the restaurant. Is when I first went, I think each plate was around $1.75. That's when I last went. And it was a very long time ago. The current price at where we were at, because this may change depending on location, and the time you go. But for when we went there in the Little Tokyo, that specific sushi place, each plate was $3.35, I think.
355 each.
355.
And
355.
and each plate has pieces of sushi to maybe 2 to 4
Yeah.
pieces.
Only up to four, by the way. No other dish had more than four.
Yeah.
And so that's really expensive, but we'll get to that later on. And so we funny story, we to make a long story short, we waited like an hour and a half to get in.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, that was long.
Ooh, I do want to talk about the queue for a little bit, like a quick second.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so like this, the Okonomiyaki place, I put in our name for 2 people. Then you just wait, and then they'll come out and call your number, your name, right? And so they had like an online tracker for your status and the wait list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm looking. We were number 150, and they were just starting on number 112. So yes, it did take like an hour and a half, but I was constantly checking to see if it was being updated. Because at first they were like number 112, number 120. I'm like, what happened to the other 8 numbers? And then they went back to 113. I'm like, okay, so they're kind of jumping back and forth. So I wanted to keep a close eye on that tracker. And it was like, oh, you're number 33rd in line. And I looked at it. I showed Jen. I'm like, we're number 33rd, not number 33rd. And you're like, what? And I show you. And you're like, it says 33rd. I'm like, what is happening?
It was
Also,
oh.
it was pretty funny, but quickly off, I just thought of this, and I'll make it quick. We sat outside because there's no way you could stand inside for an hour and a half waiting. And we were sitting at the bench, and people are just constantly coming in and out, adding their name, just asking how long the wait time is. I think the front door was the hero. There is a big arrow on it's a double door, a left and a right door. There's a big arrow on the right door pointing to the left door, meaning use the left door. The right one is locked. I'd say out of like the 40 different parties that went in, 9 parties opened the correct door the first time.
You were keeping count of it.
I was literally yelling it out loud. I'm like, 6. I'm like, the 6th person knew how to open the correct door, because it's a big red arrow on a brown door. How can you miss that, I just wanted to throw that in there because it was amazing how dumb people are nowadays.
Yeah. It was quite the spectacle. And so we finally get in, our number's called, we get in, we sit down, and we took a little bit of trouble figuring out how to do the revolving sushi trick where you pick the plate out. I completely forgot because, it's my second time. I forgot the first time how I did it. And so we had to have an employee embarrassingly teach us how to do it.
So yes, I do want to add. So first she sat us at her table. She explained how it worked. I honestly was just so like focused on the sushi, I didn't hear a word she said. And so she was like, "Okay, you got it." Okay. And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And she left. And we're like, "Oh, let's try this." I'm like, "I'm struggling to open this." And she just said it to us how to do it. And so she saw us struggling and she's like, she had a full on like demonstration. She brought like a little tray on how to open it. And she's like, "Here, this is how you do it. You want to try it?" And so you get the hang of it. And so we both did it. I'm like, "Okay, that's how you do it."
Hmm.
And then we figured it out. We started eating, and another guy comes by, shortly after. He's like, "Oh, have you guys been here before? Do you know how to open the things properly?" And I was like, "Yeah, she just showed us." And he's like, "Oh, okay, perfect." I'm like, "Yeah, we got the full demonstration." And I literally said out loud, I was like, "Yeah, but I didn't get we never got the PowerPoint presentation." And he just like looked at me and walked away. I'm like, "What?" I'm just making a joke. They pulled out the full demonstration for us. I'm like, "Where's the PowerPoint, man?"
uh, anyways, we started eating, and I'll have to say straight up, it was lackluster.
It was.
The salmon was very low quality during that time we went. It's kind of a gamble most of the time whenever you get really good quality sushi or not. But
Hmm.
the salmon especially was kind of like whatever. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. Um,
Yeah.
it was just okay. And so we ate a couple of this dishes, here and there. And here comes two things that we really liked. The first being, I think the first one that we really liked was the albacore. And so
Yes.
the
Alba.
albacore, my god, it was completely different from the rest. Like it was a game above the rest. It was melt in your mouth and so good.
It was pretty fresh too.
Yeah. And
And the other one.
oh wait, before
Oh,
we get to the other one, for some reason people did not get the albacore. They just kept on getting the salmon and tuna, but the
it's
albacore
because
was the real winner.
most there weren't, a lot of Asians there. It was more, it was a gimmick. It's for the you eat for the conveyor belt basically. That's their whole thing.
Yeah.
So you saw a lot of, non-Asians in there, and I see why now. Because they're like a kid in a candy store. They see something new, they're like, "Ooh, that's cool." They don't care. They'll just shovel the money out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why.
And so the albacore, abura something, was really good. We really liked it. And the second one was the
Gallop.
Hokkaido scallop. Oh my god, it was exactly the same. Melts in your mouth, so delicious. Those were the two real winners for, in our opinion. That was sort of good. Everything else was lackluster. Quite
Actually,
literally.
no. Actually, there were a couple other like really good
Oh,
ones.
like the popcorn
Uh,
shrimp.
the garlic popcorn shrimp was pretty good. It wasn't as good as the scallop or the albacore, but it's still one of the better ones. Also, the that little milk tart.
Yes,
That was amazing.
The Hokkaido milk pudding, I think it was what it's called, or milk tart.
Yeah.
It was so good too. But only really those four really stood out to us out of all things. And so,
Yeah.
we ate 20 plates, I think in total. That came
But
out,
I will remind, each plate had like two pieces on it, so
yeah. Um, that came out to a total of $71.
yeah, we
That
took a
is
big hit.
insane. Um, And I think both of us really agreed that never come back.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what it was like because I've never been. I knew it was gonna be a gimmick, but I didn't know it hit me that hard.
Yeah. And so, if you ever think about going to a revolving sushi, just don't. It's not worth. Go to an
Uh,
actual like restaurant for sushi.
go if someone else is paying.
Yes, go if someone else is paying, but don't ever go for yourself. um, and so yeah, that was our food adventure in Little Tokyo, and it's getting pretty late for the episode, so I do want to wrap this up. But first of all, what are your scores out of 5 stars for each and every restaurant? We'll go with the udon first. What was your score for the udon?
Udon, easy 5.
I am same agreement. It was an easy 5,
Easy
incredible, like
5.
incredible udon, and it's not like, again, I want to reiterate, it's not like mind-blowingly good. It's just really
It's
good standards, Really
It's
well
done
done,
properly.
done properly, and good price for what you get. That's why it's 5 out of 5, realistically terms. Okonomiyaki, what would you give it?
Solid 3. The price is literally what killed it for me.
Yes, a 3. We both agreed that it's tasting good, but the one thing that is literally holding us back from giving it any higher score, not even a 3.1, is the price.
That was ridiculous. $18 for, one serving.
Yeah.
I
And
don't think it was
then
worth.
and then the sushi place, what would you give it?
Oh, it's gonna be sad because I love sushi. A 2.5.
For me, it's actually a 2.
Really,
The
the
$3.
only
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the things that killed it were one, the price, two, how much you get on each thing, and the things that did save it were like the three good things there or four good things there
Yeah.
for me.
For me, it's $2 or two stars because the price was really what killed it for me. Like $3.55 per plate is just simply not worth whatever you're getting. Um, well, except for maybe the scallops and the albacore, maybe. But that's a hard maybe. If I were to ever want something like that again, I would just go to an all-you-can-eat sushi place. I'd rather just do that. Um,
Yeah, you'll get more for what it's worth because all you can eat's like $30 a person, so it's like $60. That still would have been cheaper than this place.
and you would have gotten more portions out of it.
Oh yeah, you would have gotten like 5 times more.
Yeah. And so that really concludes our food adventures. I'll link the if I remember to, I'll link the places in the description. So if you or like the names and everything. So if you ever guys want to check it out or revisit, it'll be there. And yeah. And so today's episode is ending. So I'm gonna end it off here. So I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and this is the Casuals, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.